Smart study techniques. Have you ever spent hours and hours studying only to just completely forget everything the next day?
Oh, yeah, constantly. It's the worst feeling.
Right. Or maybe you've watched your friends, they study for way less time but somehow score better marks. And you're just sitting there wondering what their secret is.
Like they have some sort of superpower or something.
Exactly. Well, today we are doing a deep dive into those exact secrets. We're revealing powerful, actually proven smart study techniques that can help you learn faster, remember things longer, and basically just study more effectively.
Yeah, and the secret really just comes down to a fundamental shift in how we approach learning in the first place. Like, let's look at a classic scenario, right? Imagine two students preparing for the exact same exam.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So you have student A, who sits at their desk just grinding for like 8 agonizing hours, and they're mostly just reading and rereading the exact same notes over and over.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. But then you have student B. Now, student B studies for only 4 hours, but they use heavily researched, evidence-based cognitive strategies.
I'm guessing student B wins.
Every time, student B almost always performs better and, with literally half the stress.
Right, and that's the core premise we are unpacking today. It's that whole idea of studying smarter versus studying harder. Because let's be honest, we have all fallen into the ultimate student trap.
Oh, definitely.
You know the one where you're reading the exact same page of a textbook, like 5 times.
Yeah.
You get to the bottom of the page and you realize you didn't understand a single word you just read.
Yeah, your eyes were moving across the words, but your brain was completely on vacation.
Exactly. Just totally checked out.
It's the illusion of productivity, right? It's incredibly common. And it happens because, honestly, most of us were never actually taught how to learn.
We were just told what to learn.
Precisely. Like, here's a syllabus, go memorize it. But whether you're a school student staring down finals or a college student trying to parse through really dense academic papers, or even a competitive exam aspirant or just a lifelong learner, the mechanics of how your brain actually acquires and stores information are exactly the same.
Which means we can hack those mechanics. So I have an audience participation question for you listening right now, and I want you to be totally honest. Which student are you right now?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Are you grinding for 8 hours hoping the sheer volume of time just magically equals knowledge? Or are you that 4-hour super strategic learner?
And if you are the first one, don't worry, because we are going to fix that right now, starting with the environment.
Oh, the environment is so key.
Because you really can't absorb a dense subject if your brain is constantly, ricocheting between tasks.
Totally. You have to take back control of your focus before you even open a book.
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest barrier to learning today isn't even the difficulty of the material itself. It's the myth of multitasking.
Oh, the multitasking myth is huge. It is hilariously relatable, honestly, how we can sit down with the absolute best intentions, right? We open a fresh notebook, grab a pen, and then immediately check our phone every 2 minutes.
Or we try to watch an online video lecture while simultaneously replying to a group chat on WhatsApp or something.
Right. And we think we're doing both things, but we're really doing neither of them well.
Not at all. And there's a really fascinating neurological reason for this. It's something called attention residue.
Attention residue. Okay, break that down for us.
Yeah, so when you shift your focus from your textbook to, say, a social media feed, and then back to your textbook, your brain doesn't just cleanly snap back to the studying.
Oh, it leaves something behind.
Exactly. A literal percentage of your cognitive processing power is just left behind, still thinking about that post or that text message you just read.
Wow, so it's like having way too many background apps open on your phone. Like, it drains the battery and completely slows down the processor.
That is the perfect analogy. Yes. Yeah. Your brain has a very limited working memory capacity. Every single time you task switch, you are basically forcing your brain to recalibrate.
And that takes energy, right?
Tons of it. It burns glucose and induces mental fatigue super rapidly. So single tasking, like putting the phone in a totally different room, closing every single browser tab except the one you actually need, that drastically improves learning speed.
Because you were dedicating 100% of your cognitive bandwidth to just processing that new information.
Exactly. Okay, so the phone is banished, the tabs are closed, and I'm single tasking. But let's be real for a second. I can't just stare at a complex subject for 4 hours straight.
No, definitely not.
My brain will just melt. So how do we actually structure that time so we don't just hit a massive wall after 20 minutes.
Well, that's where you have to leverage the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's an incredibly popular time management method, and it really leans into your brain's natural attention span. So the standard model is the 255 rule.
Okay, 255. How does that work?
You study with intense, totally unbroken focus for 25 minutes, and then that's followed by a mandatory 5-minute break. You repeat that entire cycle 4 times, and then you take a longer, maybe 15 to 30-minute break.
Okay, wait, I actually need to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because 25 minutes sounds really short. Like if I'm finally in the zone studying a really tough subject, let's say I'm finally understanding a super complex mathematics formula, isn't forcing myself to stop and take a break going to completely ruin my flow?
It's a totally valid concern. And honestly, it's the #1 reason people resist trying the technique. But the neuroscience actually suggests otherwise.
Really? How so?
Well, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for complex problem solving and deep focus, it physically cannot operate at maximum efficiency continuously.
Oh, so it just runs out of gas.
Basically, yeah. If you try to push through for 3 hours straight on complex math, your cognitive performance actually drops off a cliff, even if you don't realize it in the moment.
So the break isn't just like a fun reward, it's a biological necessity.
Exactly. It's all about neurotransmitter depletion. Breaking large, intimidating chapters into these 25-minute sprints keeps the mind fresh.
I see.
Let's use that math example you brought up. For 25 minutes, you are entirely focused on solving equations. But when that timer goes off, you don't pick up your phone.
Right, no phone.
You stand up, stretch, maybe look out a window, grab a glass of water. That 5-minute physical reset literally clears out the cognitive fatigue.
That makes so much sense.
So when you sit back down, your brain has reset, and you are ready to tackle the next set of problems with a totally clear head.
Okay, that reframes it completely for me. You aren't interrupting your flow at all. You're actually protecting your endurance over the long haul.
Exactly.
Okay, so our environment is dialed in and we are pacing ourselves nicely. But what happens when you are right in the middle of a Pomodoro session and you hit a concept in your textbook that feels like, I don't know, like you're reading an alien language?
Right, when you just hit a wall. This is the critical pivot from just managing time to actual comprehension. And the ultimate tool for this is the Feynman technique.
Named after the physicist, right? Richard Feynman?
Yes, the Nobel Prize winner. He was famous for being able to explain incredibly complex quantum mechanics in just like plain everyday language.
Right, the whole idea being that if you can't explain it simply, you don't actually understand it yourself. So how do we practically apply that when we're studying?
So there are 4 basic steps. First, you learn the concept. Second, you try to explain it in simple language. Third, and this is the real test, you pretend you are teaching it to a young child, say an 8-year-old.
An 8-year-old. Okay, that's tough.
It is. And then fourth, when you inevitably stumble or find yourself relying on fancy jargon, you identify that gap in your understanding and go right back to the source material to fill it.
I really want to dig into that third step, teaching a child, because it exposes what psychologists call the illusion of explanatory depth.
Oh, that's a great concept.
Right. Like we think we know how a zipper works until someone asks us to actually draw one. Then we have no idea.
Exactly.
Let's use photosynthesis as an example. A typical student will just memorize the rigid textbook definition. Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants prepare food using sunlight. And they can just recite it perfectly on a flashcard.
Right, and they feel this false sense of competence because of that recitation. They think, I know the words, so I know the concept.
But they don't.
No, they don't. And the Feynman technique forces you to break that down. An 8-year-old wouldn't just accept that definition. They would ask, but how?
They just keep asking why and how.
Exactly. So instead of the rigid definition, you have to explain it like this. Imagine plants have a tiny little kitchen inside their leaves.
Oh, I love the tiny kitchen analogy.
Right. They take sunlight, water from the dirt, and the air we breathe out, and they basically cook it all together to make sugar for energy.
Yes. By forcing yourself to use the tiny kitchen analogy, you prove to your own brain that you actually grasp the underlying mechanism, not just the fancy vocabulary words.
Absolutely.
And this leans beautifully into another super crucial strategy, studying with real-life examples. Because our brains are not hard drives, they are story processors. Abstract concepts just evaporate, but narratives actually stick.
Precisely. You have to give the new information an anchor in your existing memory network.
Take economics, for example. If you read a really dense paragraph about inflation, it is incredibly dry. It's so boring.
Just numbers and charts.
Yeah. But if you connect it to reality, like let's say last year, your favorite burger at the campus cafe cost 50 rupees.
Okay, tracking.
But this year, you go to buy that exact same burger, and the menu says it's 60 rupees. Now, the burger didn't get bigger. Your money just got weaker. That's super annoying reality. That is inflation.
And suddenly, a theoretical macroeconomic principle becomes something you understand viscerally, because it literally affects your daily life and your lunch money.
Exactly. You've attached the new, boring academic file to an existing emotional folder in your brain.
So we have analogies and real-world anchors to understand those micro concepts. But what about the macro? Like when you have a massive chapter with dozens of interconnected ideas, writing standard linear notes just feels like copying the textbook verbatim.
Because it essentially is. Which brings us to mind mapping.
Okay, tell me about mind mapping.
Well, the human brain does not store information in vertical bulleted lists. It stores information in semantic networks, basically webs of association. So mind mapping is a visual note-taking strategy that actually mimics the physical structure of your brain's neural pathways.
So practically speaking, how do I do that? Say I'm taking an online course on digital marketing. I shouldn't just write a list of definitions.
No, skip the lists. You take a totally blank piece of paper, write digital marketing right in the dead center, and circle it. Then you draw branches shooting out from that center for your main topic. So a branch for SEO, one for social media marketing, email content, and paid ads.
Oh, I see. And then from the social media branch, you draw even smaller twigs for like Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Exactly. What you are doing is spatializing the data.
Yeah.
You can see at a single glance how all those different subtopics relate back to the core concept.
That makes total sense because when you are sitting in a stressful exam room, it is so much easier to recall a visual map and mentally just kind of walk down a branch than it is to recall like the third bullet point on page 42 of your notebook.
So true. Okay, so we've mapped it out, we've explained it to our imaginary 8-year-old, and we actually understand it. But here is the brutal reality of being a student.
Let's hear it.
Understanding a concept at your desk on a random Tuesday does not mean you will remember it on exam day 3 weeks later.
No, it definitely doesn't.
So how do we lock this information into the vault permanently?
This is where we shift from comprehension to retention. And the undisputed champion of retention is a technique called active recall.
Oh man, this brings up the absolute ultimate student illusion for me. Highlighting.
Oh, yes, the highlighter trap.
We take a neon yellow highlighter and we just paint the entire textbook until it glows in the dark. And we call that revision. It feels so incredibly satisfying. We feel like we're doing serious, hard academic work.
It feels productive, yes, but scientifically, it is entirely passive. Your eyes are scanning the text, but your brain is essentially asleep at the wheel.
Wow.
Active recall is the exact opposite of that. Instead of passively rereading or highlighting, you consume the information, you literally close the book, and you force yourself to retrieve the information directly out of your brain from scratch.
Let's actually demonstrate this with a quick interactive memory challenge for the listener right now. Let's use the solar system.
Oh, fun. Let's do it.
Okay, wherever you're listening right now, close your eyes for a second. Just humor me. How many planets are there? Which one is the largest? And which planet is known as the red planet?
Now, if you just answered those 8 planets, Jupiter, Mars, without looking at a screen or a book or Googling it, you just engaged in active recall.
Boom. But let's dig into the why. What is physically happening in the brain when I close the book that makes it so much more powerful than just, like, reading the answer?
Think of a memory like a destination deep in a really dense jungle. When you just read a textbook, it's like flying over that jungle in a helicopter.
Okay, I like this.
You can clearly see the destination from the air, but you don't actually know how to get there on the ground. Active recall is basically taking a machete and hacking a trail through the jungle yourself.
And the first time you do it, it is exhausting and super frustrating.
Yes. Psychologists actually call this desirable difficulty.
Wait, so the struggle is actually the point?
Yes. The struggle is the learning. Every single time you struggle to retrieve that information, your brain physically reinforces that specific neural pathway by wrapping it in a substance called myelin.
And myelin makes the signal travel faster next time, right?
Exactly. Reading is just confirming the information exists, but recalling is building the permanent neurological bridge to actually retrieve it when you really need it.
That completely changes how I view the frustration of forgetting something.
Yeah.
It means the effort of trying to remember is exactly the thing that builds the memory.
Exactly. But hacking that jungle trail just once isn't enough. Which leads us to the ultimate duo. You have to pair active recall with spaced repetition.
You cannot have one without the other.
No, they are a package deal.
Because, I mean, we've all lived the tragedy of the perfect timetable.
Right.
It's Sunday night, you are highly motivated, you create this beautifully color-coded hour-by-hour study schedule.
And you completely abandon it by Tuesday morning.
Yep. We cram a massive chapter into our heads, we feel brilliant about it, and then we never look at it again until the night before the test.
Which completely ignores a biological reality called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve.
The forgetting curve. That sounds ominous.
It is. In the late 19th century, this psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus, proved that we lose an exponential amount of new information within the first 24 hours unless we deliberately interrupt that decay.
So spaced repetition is the interruption.
Exactly. It's strategically spacing out your active recall sessions to basically flatten that forgetting curve. The optimal schedule looks something like this.
Okay, take notes on this part.
Day 1, you learn the topic. Day 2, you do a really quick active recall session. Then you don't look at it for a few days. You allow it to start fading. And then on day 7, you recall it again. Then day 15, and finally a quick review on day 30.
So if I'm a college student learning, say, a new coding language or studying really complex anatomical terms, I don't just brute force it in one massive stressful weekend session. I spread it out.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By revising at these specific expanding intervals, you are basically telling your brain, hey, this information keeps coming up over and over. It must be vital for our survival.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, and this triggers a process where the memory is moved from your fragile short-term storage directly into your robust long-term memory. It literally interrupts the synaptic decay.
Okay, so we've comprehended the material with Feynman, and we've locked it into long-term storage using spaced repetition and active recall. Now we have to actually execute.
The exam itself.
Let's talk about sitting down to take the test and managing the sheer volume of a massive syllabus. How do we approach this strategically?
By applying the 80-20 rule, which is also known as the Pareto principle. This is what we call goal-based studying.
The Pareto principle.
The principle states that roughly 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. So in an academic context, it means that 20% of the core concepts in a textbook will often make up 80% of the actual exam questions.
This is huge for competitive exam aspirants. Like if you were preparing for something massive like a law entrance exam or an MBA admissions test, trying to memorize every single footnote in a 1,000-page book is a guaranteed recipe for burnout.
Oh, absolutely. You have to act like a detective.
Yeah.
You analyze previous year questions to spot the patterns. You identify those high-yield chapters.
Right, it's not about maliciously ignoring topics, but it's about ruthlessly prioritizing the foundational concepts that carry the most weight.
Exactly. You dedicate your deepest, most intense Pomodoro sessions to that critical 20%.
Work smart, not just hard. And once you've targeted that 20%, you need to test yourself on it. Which brings us to practice testing. You know, we usually view a test as this scary judge at the end of the semester that just proves if we are smart or not.
And that framing creates massive, debilitating test anxiety. We really need to shift that paradigm completely. Practice tests aren't just for measuring learning, they are actually tools for learning.
Yes. Practice testing is essentially active recall on steroids. You finish a chapter, and instead of just moving on to the next one, you actively hunt down multiple choice questions. You sit down in a quiet room and attempt a full mock test under timed conditions.
It acts as an incredible diagnostic tool. Every single mistake you make on a mock exam highlights the exact gap in your knowledge.
It's a neon sign pointing to what you don't know.
Exactly. It shows you precisely where you need to apply the Feynman technique again. Plus, regularly exposing yourself to the strict format of a test lowers the activation of your amygdala.
The fear center of the brain.
Right, so when the real exam day finally arrives, your brain just says, oh, we've done this a dozen times before, there's no need to panic.
It takes the fear completely out of failing. A failed mock test isn't a failure, it's just glorious data.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered the mental strategies, the focus, the memory tricks, but before we wrap up, we absolutely have to talk about the physical foundation. Because you can have the best spaced repetition flashcards in the entire world, but if the hardware of your brain is broken, the software just won't run.
This is the non-negotiable variables, sleep and physical exercise.
Oh, the classic all-nighter. Let me tell you, I can't count how many times in college I stayed up until like 4 a.m. before a final, drinking my weight in coffee, feeling like an absolute academic warrior.
We've all been there.
And then I sit down for the test, flip to the very first page, and my mind goes completely, terrifyingly blank.
It is a painful rite of passage for sure. But from a neurological standpoint, sacrificing sleep to study is literally the equivalent of typing a brilliant 10-page essay and then just unplugging the computer from the wall before hitting save.
Wait, really? It's that destructive?
Absolutely. While you are sleeping, your brain isn't just powered down like a machine, it is incredibly active. During deep sleep, a structure in your brain called the hippocampus literally replays the day's learning events to your neocortex.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it acts like a librarian, taking the messy files from the temporary USB drive of your day and writing them securely into the permanent hard drive of your cortex.
So if you skip the sleep, the librarian never gets to file the memories and they just get dumped in the trash.
Precisely. And furthermore, sleep initiates a process where your brain literally shrinks slightly.
It shrinks. That sounds crazy.
It does, but it shrinks to flush out metabolic waste products that build up during your waking hours. If you don't sleep, that toxic waste just remains there, causing that awful brain fog where you can't recall even basic facts.
Okay, the actionable advice here couldn't be clearer. Get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, especially the night before an exam. Drink water, and exercise for 20 to 30 minutes daily.
Because getting your heart rate up increases blood flow and oxygen to the brain, which actually promotes neurogenesis.
The creation of new neurons.
Yes. A healthy body creates a formidable mind. It really is the bedrock that allows all these other smart study techniques to even function in the first place.
All right, let's bring it all together. We have completely dismantled the exhausting myth of just studying harder. It is definitely not about locking yourself in a library for 12 hours. It is about strategic brilliance.
To synthesize everything we've explored today, here are the top 5 ultimate smart study habits you really need to develop.
Let's hear them.
First, use the Pomodoro technique to manage cognitive fatigue and protect your focus. Second, rely on active recall to hack through the jungle and build permanent memory pathways.
Love that.
Third, use spaced repetition to flatten the forgetting curve. Fourth, deploy the Feynman technique to guarantee deep comprehension, not just memorization. And fifth, use practice testing to diagnose your weak spots and conquer exam anxiety.
Okay, listener, here is your 7-day Smart Study Challenge. For the next week, we want you to pick just one of these techniques.
Yeah, do not try to overhaul your entire life overnight. That never works.
Exactly. Maybe just try one 25-minute Pomodoro session today, just one. Or the next time you finish reading a page, close the book and try active recall instead of reaching for that neon highlighter. Test it out and just watch how rapidly your focus and your retention improve.
And as you take on that challenge, I want to leave you with one final thought to really ponder. We talked about how practice tests are tools for learning, not just measurements of it.
Right.
If tests are actually the mechanism that drives learning forward, how might that completely change the way you view your very next wrong answer or your very next failure?
Ooh, I absolutely love that reframe. A wrong answer isn't a dead end at all. It's just the necessary stepping stone to the right one. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and taking this deep dive into the science of learning. Remember, success is not about the sheer volume of hours you grind, but the quality of the strategies you use. Keep studying smarter, keep challenging your own brain, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, and happy studying.